such a time as this.
And this is For Such a Time as This. I'm your host, Pastor James Pittman. I want to explain how I pick topics for shows. What I do is I go into my feed, and so I go on YouTube. You put in certain search criterion, and then you have subscriptions, and then it comes up in your feed. And so I don't go on the internet searching to pick on people. What comes up in my feed, I deal with. And so whatever videos are very prominent in evangelicalism comes across my desk, and I deal with it. So I want to deal with, again, Tim Keller, because he's pretty popular in Christendom, and the feed is coming up, and he's being interviewed about people who don't, who have not accepted Christ, and he's being questioned, obviously being questioned by a non-believer. I want to play the clip, and then I want to go through a little bit of Mr. Keller's response.
So where does that leave the millions of Muslims, Sikhs and Jews? Are they sadly and completely deluded?
People who never heard about Jesus or never really got a hearing about Jesus.
I'm not talking about them, because some of those people have heard about. I'm talking about the millions of Muslims, Sikhs and Jews who have heard about Jesus. Where does your thesis leave them?
Where they are right now, it means that if there's never any change, they don't get Jesus. If he is who he said he is, then long term they don't have God. If, on the other hand, all I can always say about this is God gives me, even as a minister with the Scripture, a lot of information on a need-to-know basis. And a need-to-know basis means, here's all I can tell you. Unless you get Jesus Christ, who created you to start with, unless you are reunited with him sometime, there is no eternal future of thriving. It just makes sense. Again, I'm trying to go back to this idea that if he is who he says he is, you've got to have him. If right now a person doesn't have them, then he or she needs to get them. If they die and they've never, if they die and they don't have Jesus Christ, I don't know. In other words, I have a need-to-know basis. This is the only thing I know. You need Jesus.
Now, I want to say this. If you preach and teach long enough, sooner or later, a little bit of heresy is going to slip out between your lips. Hopefully, we are humble enough that when someone points it out to us, we are humble enough to say, yeah, I misspoke. That's not what I meant, or so forth. So I want to say that everyone, and when you've preached or taught long enough, you're going to preach a little heresy. But I want to go over a little bit of stuff here with Tim Keller here. A question is asked of him. I just want to recount what you just heard. A question was asked of him about Muslims, Sikhs, and people who do not ascribe to the Christian theology. What Keller does, go back and watch it. Keller says, well, people who've never heard about Jesus. He wants to appeal to those who are ignorant. And the interviewer says, no. I'm not talking about the ignorant. I'm talking about the people who have heard the Christian message, the gospel, and have rejected the Christian gospel to cling to their own beliefs, whether it be Hinduism, Sikhs, or Muslims. And so he redirects Keller because he wants to go to the safe place, the ignorant people out in the bushes. No, not talking about them. Well-educated people who have rejected Christianity. So he brings them back. And then Keller goes down this line of long-term, they don't have Jesus. If you don't have Jesus, you don't have him in the long term, short term, medium term, no term. If you haven't accepted Christ, you don't have him, period. Not just long term. And so I'm not quite sure what he means by that. And then when he says that, he then feigns ignorance. Well, as a minister, I get stuff on a need-to-know basis. See, I don't really know. And then he goes into this theology. And again, I don't know all things Tim Keller. But then he goes and he says, if you don't have Jesus, you need to be reunited with him. What? Reunited? What? To be reunited with someone means you were first with them in the first place. So I don't know quite what that means. I think it means that somehow we were pre-existed with God in eternity and then we were born. No. He couldn't mean that. But yeah, I don't know what he means by reunited. I don't know what he means by that. And then if you don't have Christ in the long term, you won't thrive. Well, that's an interesting way to put it. I thought it didn't have Jesus long term. Not only did you not thrive, I think the Bible says you go to hell. You are punished in hell. And then the coup de grace at the end. He says, I know you need Jesus, but in other religions, he flat out says it. I don't know. I don't know. That's not good.
For such a time as this,